Well, hello there, everyone. This is Mr. Brass, and I'm being joined here today by um, a person in the Versus community that I've been watching for a long time, and I've been a great fan of his animation. How it's improved greatly over time. Um, this is 1FishMob. How are you doing, my good sir?
I'm doing good. How about you?
I'm doing good. Like I said, I've been in the Versus community myself for the longest time, and I've I've helped do research on various characters, and I have actually I'm trying to think. I don't know if I actually did a voiceover or something, but I know I've been very much involved in it, and I've it's been I can't remember exactly when I ran into your show, but I think it was you had done sort of an animation for Cartoon Fight Club or something.
Oh yeah, Godzilla versus Gion.
Yeah, I think that's what. Although I think that may have been it. But I thought, the animation was good, and it was just a. I think that's how I got introduced to your channel, and I've been like, if you remember Cartoon Fight Clubs, when they did Mickey Mouse versus Bugs Bunny.
Yes,
I actually did a great deal of the research for Bugs Bunny.
that's awesome. I guess I
Mhm.
know who to ask when I go and do SpongeBob versus Bugs Bunny. Then.
Oh yeah, very much so. Because I mean, I nearly drove myself insane because, watching like almost like 100 years worth of cartoon stuff will drive you nuts, especially with Bugs Bunny. Um, but anyway, I also so I wanted to ask you, when did you actually start getting involved in animation and the Versus community yourself?
For the versus community, that would be 2014 was the first episode of Fan War, Hulk versus Doomsday.
Mhm.
And I started getting more into the animation community when I start wanted to start talking about movies and TV shows more. I even made a second channel for that.
Mhm. Yeah. Um. Like it, and I mean, as over time, I've actually done my own little animation. It's not nearly as good. Um. But like I did like sprite fights. Like Cartoon Fight Club did this thing like Salt to Salt, where you input animations
Yeah.
like between two unlikely like you have like one weak character and one very strong character, and you would just have the weak character end up beating the strong character through some nefarious means
I
or
did
some.
an animate. I did an animation for Salt Assault once.
I did one like for Double D versus Darth Vader.
Mine was Godzilla versus Cloverfield.
Ah, yeah. So I remember how I've been attached to the Versus community for a while, and I was remembering that I had actually so I was remembering, I think, the drama that has befallen you recently as you put up a video clarifying your side of the story of it.
Yes.
Mhm. Uh, I mean, basically, from what, a long story short for people that don't know, you were basically kicked out of Discord servers and in some versus communities because I would say political disagreements, to put it bluntly.
Yes. Yes. For those who don't know, I am a moderate conservative. I'm pretty much very center, leaning a tiny bit to the right. And obviously, a lot of people will have taken issue with that.
Yeah, and I personally just found it funny because I would not think that that would be much of a big deal in these communities because, I mean, it's centered around watching media and there's not really much like I do know that there are people that go into media into the more culture war aspect of media, but when it comes to like what you and I do to a certain extent, it's we're more like interpreting media in order to see like feats of strength or that sort of stuff.
Yeah. I'll just say it like this. Politics is like a parasite. You don't want it, but it will find a way to infect anything it wants and eat away at it.
Hmm. Yes. And personally, I always thought that like there are a bunch of matchups that I've always wanted to see, and I never really think that. I mean, it's going to be like one matchup that I actually was proud of that I actually because I do my own I have my own DeviantArt where I actually posted like write ups of death battles of like of matchups that I wanted to see,
Hmm.
and one matchup that I was actually glad that I was proud of myself for doing was Slenderman versus Jason Voorhees. Uh,
That sounds like a fun matchup, but if I'm right, aren't some iterations of Slender Man kind of like an omnipresent concept?
yes, and that's sort of the thing that I also wanted to go into, like how going into that sort of that research stuff. Basically, what I try to do when I'm doing research, even if it's on characters that are technically in the public domain, I try to make it so like, all right, who was the person that created this, and what are they associated like most with this character? So with Slenderman, he was originally a something awful character, and he's technically not in the public domain.
Hmm.
He has a copyright on him.
Yeah,
So
I don't. I think a lot of people forget about that.
yeah. So like Victor Surge is his name, like the who owns the copyright of it. So generally what I do is I try to stick like what are I mean it doesn't necessarily because he sometimes will like he'll give the green light to a bunch of different projects and sometimes there's not like one canon to them.
Yeah.
But generally what I say is that if Victor Surge has personally greenlit it, where he's either worked on the thing or he's greenlighted someone else's rendition of Slenderman, I generally take that to be sort of like as authoritative as you could possibly get with the character.
That sounds reasonable.
Mm-hmm. Like for example, I would consider the Slender Man movie like like the pretty bad one that came out
Yeah,
was I would consider that part of Slender Man's canon because Victor Surge sold the copyright to those people, and so the character is legally theirs as well.
that sounds about right.
Mhm. And that always gets down to characters like um for example, there are certain characters that are not even meant to have a canon, like
Yeah,
like
like Bugs
Cthulhu.
Bunny.
Oh yeah, Bugs Bunny, and even like characters like Cthulhu. Um, H.P. Lovecraft specifically didn't like the idea of a canon because
Sorry,
he felt,
my cat's up on the desk.
oh, that's fine. Yeah, my yeah, like I know with H.P. Lovecraft, he didn't even like the idea of a canon because he thought sticking to one story limits it, like the things that you can do. So he expressly, uh, I didn't like to have a canon at all. But even with that, um, I would say like who were the guys that H.P. Lovecraft worked with and who was like in his inner circle. I generally just go from there
Yeah,
because that's
I agree.
basically the closest thing you can get.
Yeah, I, I agree. I feel like depending on the matchup, you should try to go with like unless a composite is needed, try to go for a specific version of the character that fits best with the matchup. Like let's be honest, like Dracula versus Frankenstein. That's a good fun matchup. I feel
Yeah.
like for that you'd want to use the universal iterations of the characters because they're the ones that most people think of.
Well, yeah, and it's generally the ones that most people like when they think of these characters, and like because there are versions of Dracula and Frankenstein that would make no sense if they fought each other.
Yeah,
They have nothing in common, but you
like
would want the
yeah,
one that have something in common.
yeah, like I don't think anyone's going to want to real like obviously people aren't going. Sorry, losing my words. Like the Hotel Transylvania Dracula. I think more people would be interested in seeing him fight someone like, say, Gru from Despicable Me more than they are interested in seeing him fight someone like Ganondorf.
Yeah, because or Simon Belmont,
Yeah,
because with Simon Belmont's going after all the Draculas.
yeah,
Um, and that's how I do sort of see it as myself is I think when it comes to canon can be a tricky thing. I also do know that there is people don't really like admitting it, but there is a bit of subjectivity that goes into scaling.
absolutely.
Mhm.
So, like, I'm actually currently working on two Hulk episodes. I got roped into that through a vote and other discussions, but so I'm going to be scaling for both Asura from Asura's Wrath and Superman. And the scaling for those characters are going to be all sorts of wild. And Asura is so far kind of the tricky one because we're trying to figure out how high does his scaling go.
Yeah. To me, a general rule of thumb that I have seen many versus debaters do is that it generally comes down to like you want if you're going to apply one set of scaling to another, like to one character, you have to apply a similar sort of method to the other one to be consistent. Like
Yeah.
there does run a trouble like in some versus fights where you'll have one like where they will give a good scaling, but it'll be the most low ball scaling that you could possibly get for a certain feat.
Yeah.
And for the other character they'll give the most highball interpretation that you could possibly give of that feat.
I won't
So
spoil anything. I won't spoil any things, but one of the Hulk episodes I'm working on is going to be like that. Not because of any biasy, but because one of the universes are definitely weaker than the other.
yeah, and I actually found that pretty interesting how when it comes to like the to me it has to go down to like you have to be consistent in the scaling because if you're going to highball one character, I think you should try to highball the other character. If you're going to lowball one character, you should lowball the other one because
Yeah,
it comes across as biased.
like I did with Superman versus Homelander.
Yeah. Which, I mean, anytime Homelander is in any fight, I'm always rooting for him to lose, no matter who it is.
I think that's everyone.
Yeah. Like, I mean, you could have Homelander versus just basic, like, oh, and with Death Battle, like how they had Omni Man um, tearing his heart out and making him
Uh-huh.
eat it.
Hmm.
Um, whenever I think of any fight with him, I'm always think of any character just doing that to him.
I chose not to do that with Superman because, like I said after the TMNT versus Ruby episode, I want to try to keep each defeat more in character with who each of the combatants are. So I
Yeah.
figured Superman defeating Homelander and then one upping him on the on the threat
Hmm.
that he gives to him was honestly a better way to end it.
Hmm. There is some funny things that I've noticed about Superman that people sort of just say that it's sort of funny. Like for example, like when and it's sort of ridiculous when you think about it. Like for example, the common thing that they will say is that Superman is weak to magic in the sense that he has no defense against magic.
Hmm.
And I'm like, that's all, pretty much like unless you're a magic wielder in DC, you have no defense against magic. Like that's basically everyone. Like Batman has no defense against magic, really.
Yeah. It could still be a factor that plays into a fight, but I don't imagine it's going to be a really big factor.
Yeah, and like another one is you ever heard of, like those superheroes where basically they have a weakness, but the weakness is the same thing that a regular human being would be weak to.
Yeah.
Like, for instance, you'll have a superhero where like they can be, or you'll have a villain where they can be killed by having their head cut off or something. And I'm like,
Yeah.
well, that would kill a regular person too.
Hmm.
And what's funny is that people don't realize is that with the Superman, it's not actually the actual rock of kryptonite that it's actually he's weak to. It's the
Hmm.
radiation.
Yeah. No, I always understood that.
Mhm. Like, and that's sort of I know Godzilla's been doing the rounds where he's been fighting in both Marvel and DC,
Hmm.
and I knew that they had to do something when it came like if they're gonna realistically have Superman versus Godzilla, they would have to in some way, in my opinion, lowball Superman by making it so the radiation that Godzilla consumes is something that's akin to kryptonite to Superman.
That's that's actually something that's been kind of driving me crazy for for the last few weeks.
Yeah,
The writer of Godzilla Destroys the Marvel Universe has come out and said that that comic is 100% canon to the universe,
yeah.
but from Godzilla's backstory to his powers to how a lot of the characters don't know who Godzilla is, who they fought prior, and even a lot of the panels I'm starting to see from issue 2 all contradict everything that happened in the prior run of Godzilla and Marvel.
Mhm. Yeah.
So it's like you've got in the next issue, it's been revealed that Godzilla is immune to Pym particles, so he can't be shrunk down.
Mhm.
But in the prior issue, Godzilla was shrunk. The prior run of Godzilla was shrunk down to the size of a rat, and he stayed that way, slowly growing back to regular size with no control over it.
Mhm. Yeah,
It was
that is
like,
weird.
where do you consider two things? At best, that thing's only semi-canon, and second, where do you include stuff like that in versus debating? Because I'm seeing a lot of people say that's going to give Godzilla the win in the next episode, but it's like it's so contradictory to his prior appearance in the comics, Marvel comics, that I'm not sure if it's going to be included.
Mhm. Yeah, and I mean, um, however, like I know you said you're going to be doing Azura's Wrath, in
Hmm.
Azura, um, like I have seen plenty of people that have did write ups for Azura versus the Hulk, and it is definitely a very popular matchup. Is that the one that the fans demanded that you make or something?
Yes, there was a. I made a whole video and poll about it for the poll, and there was a ton of. Hold on. and there was a ton of different matchups that you could select from.
Mhm.
Sorry, my recording on my end got shut off.
Uh, that's fine. We still
Okay,
got this
so
one.
the options they were given was Asura, Xenoverse Broly, Superman, The Flash, He-Man, Hulk Hogan, Jiren, Fleetway Sonic the Hedgehog, Maul from Wildcats, and Soul Bad Guy.
Hmm.
Asura won by a landslide.
Yeah.
The the second runner up was Superman, which is why I'm making that a bonus episode. And the third
Mhm.
one was Fleetway Sonic, which will become a Fan War Arena eventually.
Mhm. Yeah. One of my favorite fights that I actually have like did a write up for outside the Jason versus Slenderman was Gray Fox from Metal Gear versus Snake Eyes from GI Joe.
Hmm.
That's um I'm a big GI Joe fan, and I became a fan of GI Joe when I was doing the research on it for Snake Eyes. And I remember the thing that drove me crazy was trying to figure out like speed calculations for uh for Snake Eyes, because there was like in GI Joe they they have the characters repeatedly blocking lasers, and people will always interpret that as relativistic, and not knowing how cartoons were back then where lasers were used in lieu of a gun.
Yeah. For me,
And
when it comes to a character who has scaling that you can't scale above the other or are pretty equal, I either say that's a factor that's either irrelevant to the debate or they just equally match with each other. In other words, there's going to be more important factors to focus on.
yeah, well, eventually I mean, because the real question that it came down to, like that I was having this discussion with, was that are these real lasers or are they just like guns that just happen to shoot lasers out of them because of copyrights? I mean, because of they don't want to be too edgy in the cartoon.
The
And
answer the answer is, do they reflect off of glass or mirrors or similarly reflective surfaces?
or is is there anything like if you read up like do they have a manual on the like when they're laying out what the weapon actually is like in a handbook, does it actually reflect what a laser actually is? And I actually did find that out, and trust me, you would not want to know how many comics, cartoons, and stuff I had to watch in order to finally get an answer to that. But it turns out that yes, it is a real lasers,
Hmm.
because it directly like mentions that they harness light or something in order to make them, and they do confirm that like it's charged light, so it is relativistic on that end. So, but the thing is that's funny is like when it comes to speed and stuff, that I found that that wasn't as much of a factor in the fight that I was actually researching, because both of them, even if they're both known that even if they are outmatched by someone that's a little faster than them, they've
Uh-huh.
beaten people that are faster than them on a regular basis.
Yeah.
So I knew that like that sort of thing couldn't be like the deciding factor unless it's like a huge, overwhelming like if one person's like omnipresent and the other one isn't, then even if the other person that is not known, like even if the other one is known for being able to beat people that are a little faster than them, that can't obviously go for someone that's omnipresent.
Yeah.
Or I've always found it sort of interesting going into that whole thing. Were there any fights that when you first came up with your idea of doing this, of doing versus battles, was there ever a thought in your head about like these are the definite matchups you want to do?
Yes, they were the first 5 episodes of Fan Wars Season 1.
Mhm. Has there ever been like a matchup that you would actually like to see, but you don't know that if your audience would actually want to see it?
Almost, almost every other fight in Fan Wars since.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I think a funny thing that I like to do personally is I like to have like a sort of contrast where if, for example, I have two cartoon characters, I like that are known for being like very kid friendly. I tend to like to make the deaths as like basically as adult themed as possible, just to have that contrast.
Hmm.
Uh,
Yeah.
but I also realize like gotta think. I was also I remember I actually had commented on that drop a video that you actually did. And
Really?
yeah, I mean I basically didn't say anything. I was anything shocking. I said that I pretty much understood your side of the conversation. And I thought it sucked that you were losing opportunities to work with people because of it.
Yeah. I'll just reiterate it. I think there's something wrong with the statement of the inclusive left has always rejected me, but the exclusive right has always welcomed me.
Mm. It's
If
funny how
you,
that works.
yeah, if you want to paint it as black and white as that.
Yeah, it's funny how that sort of stuff works out. And I just remembered that uh, I know I probably, given all that controversy, I know I probably wouldn't do that much because I don't really hang out in a lot of the first communities. I used to hang out like I can't remember when Google used to have this sort of thing where
Google Plus.
yeah, Google Plus. Yeah, I remember I used to be a part of a versus community for Cartoon Fight Club, but once that got shut down, I was like, nah, I stopped participating in the versus community as such. But I have been like around like and trying to if there's an interesting character that I like and I have the time, I will try to research it and I will try to submit it to like the person that's like if there anyone's doing that matchup to say, hey, look, here's the research.
That's where I used to get fan art I'd show at the ends of special episodes of Fan War from Google Plus.
Yeah. I actually made some myself for Animation Rewind, and I just thought it was. I mean, I still miss it a little bit because I actually had a lot of fun on there,
Yeah.
but overall, I thought it was a pretty good. Oh, I was also wondering what animation like software do you actually use?
When it came to the older episodes, I used screenshots from Gary's mod, Windows Movie Maker, and Windows Paint. Then when it came towards the end of when I was, Flowey versus Bill Cipher, I was using a combination of Windows Paint and Filmora, frame by frame animation. But with Superman versus Homelander and Pepsi Man versus the Noid, I'm using GIFs with keyframing in Filmora.
Mm-hmm. Oh, so you take like gifs of the characters and you keyframe it out.
Yeah.
Oh, that's interesting. I have seen people that do that sort of thing. Like there's people that will do Dragon Ball like versus matchups, and they will do green screens of all the characters fighting, and then just have make it look like they're fighting each other. I always
Yeah,
found it interesting. So that's sort of what you're doing.
yeah. I just get my gifts from Mugen now, or make them from sprite sheets.
Mm, that's interesting. I mean, I would assume that it's easier to do it that way than it would be like if you were personally going frame by frame and trying to land like every positioning down.
Yeah, I mean it's definitely probably more limited than like an actual animation software, but at the same time it's easy and it's something I know how to do.
Yeah, and you do it pretty well from from what I've seen.
Yep.
I've
Superman
seen.
versus Home. Oh, sorry. What were you saying?
Oh, it's fine. You go ahead.
Superman versus Homelander was the second time I animated a fight with keyframing. The first time was a test animation between Hulk and Goku just to see how that would look, how that would feel. And then Pepsi Man versus the Noid was the third one. Both are substantial improvements over the first. So I learned quickly.
Hmm. Yeah, yeah, and I definitely see the improvement that comes down to it. The Godzilla versus Gian one that you made for Animation Rewind, I thought that was
Yeah.
spectacular myself. Like, I think that's probably one of your best works, in my opinion.
I hope it's going to be outdone soon because I'm actually making a mini series for Fan War focusing on fights I would like to remaster, and Godzilla vs. Gion is going to be one of them. I didn't animate it, but I wrote the script for it.
Ah, yeah. I've always thought about doing that because I don't really have much of my own animation skills, but I do like the idea that I'm paying an animator and I'll just
Yeah,
write them the script and they can just do that sort of thing.
yeah.
Uh,
I used to do that, but my current job it's paid by commission, and I'm basically stuck on standby right now, 1 day a week for about 4 to 5 hours. So, yeah, Fan War is officially on hiatus again.
uh, well, I mean, that
Just
sucks.
just until I either start making $500 a month on Patreon, or I actually find a full-time job again.
Yep. Yeah, it's hard. It's hard paying animators with McDonald's.
And the thing is, I find it. I could animate all these fights myself, but there's two things. One, I'll need custom sprites made for some of them, and that's going to cost money. And the second, keyframing is not going to be good for certain fights. Like Superman versus Homelander is one thing. That's mostly stayed around street level. Same with Pepsi Man versus the Noid. For something like Hulk versus Astra or Goku versus Sailor Moon, I don't want to do that. I want an actual animator to be able to capture the sheer scale of that fight.
Yeah. Um, I mean that is sort of like how Death Battle does it, where there are certain fights that call for more 2D animation, where there's more fights that call for more 3D animation. Like, for example, I think Galactus versus Unicron is one of those fights that works perfect for 3D and not more so for sprite animation. And Tom and Jerry versus Tom versus
Quietly.
yeah, Wile E. Coyote. That one works better for 2D hand drawn because that's sort of what they're known for. It wouldn't really make that much sense for it to be 3D.
Yeah.
Mhm. So I do see that like where it is sort of a design choice where like you want to because on one hand you want to stay faithful to the characters and you also want to try to as much as you can stay faithful to the style that they're in.
Yeah. I was actually planning on doing Bendy versus Cuphead this season in full 2D animation, But what's my financial situation? I decided to delay that episode to next season because I want to honor both characters' inspirations.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I mean, that does sound pretty good. Of a good fight.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And so I think how when it comes to, I mean, are there any versus shows that you particularly like yourself?
I regret to say that I haven't been keeping up with a lot of them outside of Death Battle. I've just mostly been focusing on my own thing, but I'm hoping once I get my own place and no one to peep over my shoulder every time asking me what I'm watching, I'll be more inclined to follow other shows again.
I know I mean, I'm more going for Death Battle myself, but I do try to keep up with like some up and coming ones that come
Yeah.
up. Like I can't remember what it was called exactly, but I know the matchup was like Ruby versus Starfire, and
Blaze versus Starfire.
yeah, Blaze versus Starfire. Yeah,
Yeah.
I remember that one. That was like from a new up and coming one, and I liked that one.
Mhm.
So I liked and the way the research. I thought they did a great job with the research
I'll
because
have I
yeah,
will definitely have to watch that, especially since I'm going to be designing my new little place to be like a private home cinema with a giant screen and full surround sound.
yeah, I remember. Yeah, I do like these. What I do find funny. So you also do movie reviews, I believe, right?
Yes, I'm mostly focusing on ranking videos right now because I just haven't found any like I have more motivation to get these out of the way first before making my next big essay.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
Right, I even put my movie pond review series so I could focus on that. The most recent ones I made right now are every Paramount animation movie ranked, the ones made in house,
yeah,
and the other being a quick one, every Jurassic Park / World movie ranked, minus Rebirth.
yeah. Uh, what I always have found funny with movies lately is that I remember the thing that people initially wanted to go with CGI for is like the argument for CGI when it first came out was that it would make things so much cheaper than than all the like the prop making and stuff,
Yeah.
and it hasn't at all.
Yeah, at this point it really hasn't, but it's just industry standard at this point. Even though realistically with how bad the box office has gotten, it would make more sense to slash the budgets in half and just make smaller scale movies that wouldn't require expensive special effects.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I always thought that it was like because that was initially. I remember that was the initial argument for CGI was that hey, it would be so much better if we just animate this stuff in special effects than it would be if we were like hand making the like because I'm like making mechanical um like robots of the shots that we were going for like in the original Jurassic Park where they actually had animatronic dinosaurs that they made.
Yeah.
Um so I found that this like the big argument was, hey, if we CGI this, it'll cost a lot less money. And I'm like, well, we tried that and it really hasn't. In fact, in many cases, the cost has actually gone up.
Yep.
What's been your take on all these public domain movies? I mean, these public domain characters becoming movie character like these horror movie characters now.
Good. It's a testament to the fact that they're public domain now. You can do with them whatever you want. You can be more faithful to the original tension, like Amazon's Winnie the Pooh, or you could just have them be a horror monster like Blood and Honey, or you could do what one guy did and turn them into a demon hunter.
Mm, that's nice. I mean, personally, I I always just do find it funny how it's because the thing is, like, realistically speaking, there's nothing really stopping anyone from taking any character and making a movie, like a horror movie, off of it, as long as you're saying it's a parody.
And that's what these basically are. They're basically the cinematic equivalent of a shit post.
Yeah, which, I mean, there was actually a horror movie about the Grinch that stole Christmas.
Yeah, the mean one. Made by the
Yeah,
same people who made Screamboat.
yeah. And the thing is like, obviously the Dr. Seuss, the Grinch who stole Christmas and everything like that, that's still not in the public domain. But all they just did is said, "Oh, well, this is just a parody."
And for all intents and purposes, it was.
Yeah, and I mean, that's like, so I never really got the idea, like, people were saying, "Oh, well, we have to have these things in the public domain if," but that's sort of how it was. So I mean, that people were saying that we need to have these things in public domain so that we can use them. I'm like, there's never been nothing stopping people from just parodying them to begin with if they wanted to.
The thing is, with parody, sometimes companies will still try to contest that. Disney, obviously, is an infamous example.
So is Sonic, like Sega,
Yeah.
like you'll have characters that will make their own like parody versions of Sonic, and you'll have Sega going after them.
Hmm.
So, but I mean, realistically speaking, I mean, the most that comes out of those lawsuits is it just loses them money, because if it is actually a parody, then there's not really much they can do. Personally, I've always found it interesting how, like, people that say that we need to go against like big corporate animation stuff and support more local, like more small time animation,
Yeah.
they never want to argue that we should maybe try to scale, like we should change the copyright laws back to what they originally were.
If we were to change them back to the way they were originally now, that would cause a lot of legal issues, from what I understand, and not just in the USA. But I think a good compromise would be how the Sony deal with Marvel is currently. If you want to keep the copyright for that specific thing, you've got to keep using it. Hit every 7 years. And if you just sit on it and it collects dust for 7 years, then it's automatic forfeit for the public domain. Believe it or not, before Disney went and changed it, there was a halfway point in the copyright lifetime where after like 25 or like 30 years, you would have to renew the copyright, and it could only be done once, but you had to renew the copyright to make sure it didn't go public domain. Only 15% of all media was actually keeping its copyright because everything else would just go public domain.
Mhm. Yeah, originally in America, like our first ever copyright was like the Copyright Act of 1790, and basically that was just like, you have to renew, like, basically you get a copyright of like 14 years, and if you want to extend it, you get one term of another 14 years, and that's it. After that it becomes public domain. And I mean, so that would mean basically anything, like if that was applied today, that would basically mean anything from 30 years ago would be public domain now.
If I'm right, the original copyright time frame was like 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 25 years actually, but it was extended the first time because they, lifespans were starting to get longer, so they wanted to help people out with that. Then Disney started lobbying for it to be extended further and further. And I think the only reason why they didn't extend copyright laws even further to save Steamboat Willie from being public domain was because of all that hot water they got themselves in 2024.
Yeah. And personally, I just think that that is something that uh, we could easily go back to at least. I mean, if we just went back to sort of how it was originally said, because personally, I don't get what's really the point of keeping a copyright for longer than a person is alive. Like, if Walt Disney is dead, like, I don't really see how he's benefiting from his works, especially when you consider that Disney became what it was by using public domain characters.
Yeah, that's the irony. Well, for some, they would like to argue that the subsequent generation of that person who made it, but that's why for novels and stuff made outside of big companies, you have the life plus 70 years part of the copyright.
Mhm. Yeah, I always found that interesting about how it's sort of, I mean, because really the people that are really trying to extend it more and more are not like small time animators. It's the big corporate people that are trying to extend it as long as they want. And personally, I think it's stupid to a certain extent
Yeah,
because
but you
yeah,
gotta remember, as these characters go public domain, anyone can use them, including competition. So, like,
yeah,
Batman is going to go public domain in a few years from now. Like, no, next decade Batman is going public domain along with Robin, the early depiction of Catwoman, and the Joker himself. Now, what would happen if someone like, say, Marvel decided to introduce the Batman into their continuity? DC wouldn't be able to really realistically do anything about it because as long as it does not reflect the current design, portrayal, or even behavior of the current Batman, they can't do anything.
yeah. And but like here's the thing I've always said about it is that if you have a good copyright, like I mean if you've created something good, like an animation that or a product that has stood the test of time, then you should like you immediately will create a reputation and a brand that people like for example, if all of Disney's works and stuff, they all went in like Mickey Mouse, even the current versions all went into the public domain. Like it wouldn't matter like if any one of us just started making Mickey Mouse movies because there's no way to disentangle Mickey Mouse from Disney. Mickey Mouse will always be synonymous with Disney, no matter who parodies or makes any movies of them. And
Yes, but
people and that will and there will always be a loyalty to Disney for any Mickey Mouse released product.
oh, absolutely. But also remember, when a company like Disney finds itself in a worser and worser reputation, having a Mickey Mouse being created by another company gives people who don't want to support Disney but still want to enjoy Mickey Mouse an alternative.
Yeah,
So, like with that show, that Winnie the Pooh show Amazon is making for Amazon Prime,
yeah,
right? The family that the families who don't want to support Disney for whatever reason can just turn that on and have their kids watch it.
yeah. And I mean, it's sort of like this. Like you were talking about Batman, and like here's the thing: Marvel could like very much do that. Like they could have their version of Batman. That's the that would be the public domain version. They could have that Batman get beat up and killed in basically every movie that they make. But the thing is, like, the loyalty to DC and to the character of Batman is association with DC. That's never going to go away. People are always going.
Obviously.
People are always going to associate Batman with DC, and they're gonna. And whenever DC releases a product of Batman, that's going to be seen as the definitive version, regardless if they have a copyright over it.
True, but still, competition is competition.
Yeah, so that's how I've always found it, because I found it like it's sort of like like if you make something that's truly legendary, then people will associate you with that thing forever and be loyal to whatever version you did to it forever. And that and here's the thing, if you didn't make something that was legendary and something that's just forgetful, then why should you care if someone else is able to take your idea and actually make it work?
Because if they do make it work, that's going to basically take money away from your version. So, going with the Batman at Marvel idea. Let's say Marvel makes a comic run of their own little iteration of Batman. He's nothing like the current Batman we know and love. But let's say this thing reaches the #1 sales chart for like 6 months in a row. People are going to notice that. People are going to want to check it out, and that's probably going to steal away from some of the sales that DC's Batman is having.
But I mean, I think even with that, people are always going to associate with, like, they're always going to have a loyalty attached to it, even if they might like it, because I think that's sort of how branding works. And I always think that many people will end up just like what I see now with Winnie the Pooh, and you have these horror movies being made about him, is that people will just say that these people are just tryhards trying to just capitalize off public domain.
Yeah.
And so I'm always going to see that even in the best of circumstances, like, people are always going to have that sort of in their view, regardless. So,
Yeah.
I think that it's a good. I mean, I personally of the opinion that, like, there are a bunch of these public domain superheroes that are just out there, and there actually has been some people that have been wanting to make like animations in like an old like 60s Spider-Man style of these characters.
Yeah.
And like I've seen like some of the comics that these characters come from, and the animators now in their own stories are actually far better than the original. So I think in many times that's another good thing about public domain, is that you can
What?
take liked or really paid any mind to, and you can make it a legendary character.
Yeah. Well,
Mm.
I can't really think of anything else to talk about.
All right. Yeah, and I have to go too. It was nice talking to you, bro.
It was nice talking to you too.
Mm-hmm. So I just want to say that is all for. Wait, do you have any final words? Would you like to tell the audience, like, where they can find you, what projects you're
Oh
going
yeah.
to be working on, and the stuff like that?
Yeah. You can find me on 2 channels, 1FishMob and FishMob's Movie and TV. I'm slowly working on Goku vs. Sailor Moon for Fan War, and for my second channel, I'm going to be ranking every Best Animated Feature nominee that lost the award. So, 78 movies of varying different square pegs and varying different round holes.
I know. I'm certainly going to look forward to that, the Sailor Moon versus Goku, because that's going to be a legendary one.
Yeah. No, I really want to emphasize on just how crazy this best animated feature nominee ranking is. I am literally comparing the Minions to Hayao Miyazaki.
That's
Shark
crazy.
Shark Tale is going toe to toe with stuff like The Secret of Kells.
Mm.
And of course, everyone's favorite, the Boss Baby, now has to be put in comparison to Shrek 2.
Electric Boogaloo. Uh, but yeah, and uh, so it was so nice having you on, bro, and talking about your show, and I definitely want everyone to check it out.
Yeah.
And so make sure to check out 1FishMob, check out his show, like, subscribe, check him out on Twitter as well. He goes by the same thing, 1FishMob. And yeah, that's all for today. This is Mr. Brass saying goodbye and get wise.